Payton Pritchard does Payton Pritchard things. Jaylen Brown finishes the job. Boston Celtics get a really important early season test and a win right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Thanks to Blockbuster brand, it's holiday season. Drop Drew in the mix, and 3 from KP. No, we not on the Knicks. Flushing competition like Al on Giannis. Juice and Big Juice, still Bean Town's finest. Banner 18 going up in the rafters. Watch the C's game in Locked On after. Karalis on the breakdown, clutch like a tip from D. White on the breakdown. John on the mic documenting domination. Matter pen a back bay, it's all C's nation. Rain and J's, how we started raising business, how we finished. Locked On Celtics pod, home of the winners. Peace.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. I got you covered every Monday through Friday. In fact, I'm podcasting for like 2 weeks straight because the Celtics play Friday and Saturday this week, and Sunday is a normal podcast recording day. I always record Sunday through Thursday for your Monday through Friday show. So recording all that week, and then next week they play on a Friday again. I got podcasts coming out the ears, and that's with ears like mine. Of course, you're going to podcast a lot. I'm John Karalis, by the way. If you're new to the show, make sure that you are following me on Twitter, X John_Karalis. I've been covering the Celtics for about 20 years, and doing it right now as a beat writer for Boston Sports Journal. I've also written Built Different, one of my 2 books. Both are available on johnkaralis.com. $30 gets you a personalized signed copy shipped wherever you are in the United States. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Make sure you're on the YouTube page. Make sure you're in the comment section. I love people having those threads and conversations in the comment section. Today we're talking about a 119-108 win over the Milwaukee Bucks. It's an important test. I'll tell you why later on in the show. The Celtics are still figuring themselves out. I know it may sound like, what do you mean they're figuring themselves out? They are. And I'll explain all of that in the third segment. I'll just run through the biggest storylines here, starting with Payton Pritchard, which was discussed on Locked On Postcast, Locked On Celtics Postcast. If you didn't hear that, if you're waking up and you're like, why are there 2 podcasts on my Celtics feed, the audio feed? Steve Lennox does Locked On Celtics Postcast immediately after the game, so I can go and do all my stuff behind the scenes, talk to all the players and all of that, and then give you this podcast for when you wake up in the morning. That is on the Locked On Sports Boston YouTube page. The Locked On Celtics YouTube page is still just me. So the only place to start here is with Payton Pritchard, who saved the Celtics in a lot of ways with 28 points off the bench. The Celtics outscored the Milwaukee bench 30-19. Payton Pritchard had 28 of the 30 points. Jordan Walsh had the other 2. The Milwaukee bench did not perform very well. Bobby Portis had 4. Pat Connaughton had 5. Andre Jackson had 4. Marshawn Beauchamp and Tyler Smith scored in garbage time, so that didn't even really count. So the Bucks did not get much help outside of their starters. So Pritchard kind of bailed out the starters who started out cold. I thought for sure that this was going to be a high 3-point volume game. Now, they did shoot 47 of them, and they made 18. And this is where they won the game, really, again, because they were 18 for 47, 38.3%, just above average, just above league average by about 1.5%. The Bucks, 8 of 31, just not going to win. You're not going to win games shooting 8 of 31. The Celtics didn't overwhelm Milwaukee with 3-pointers outside of Payton Pritchard. Pritchard was 8 of 12, so the rest of the team was 10 of 35, which is not a great percentage. But Pritchard's 8 of 12 from 3 more than made up the difference. So the Celtics, for some reason, decided that they really wanted to challenge in the paint. And I know they'd gotten blasted in points in the paint. And before the game, I said I'd like to see them. I didn't think they were going to win points in the paint because Milwaukee has Giannis, and Giannis gets a ton of points in the paint. They're a points in the paint type of team, and they didn't. The Bucks had a 44-40 advantage, so only a couple more buckets in the paint, and the Celtics shot a better percentage in the paint, so almost even there. So that's a bit of a win. But I thought the Celtics, because of Brook Lopez being more of a drop big, but they didn't drop him quite like I thought they would. But I thought that would just lead to three after three after three. I thought the Celtics might put up 75 3-pointers. I thought they were going to go 35 for 75 in this game, and it was just going to be a potential record-setting night. But they didn't. They attacked a lot more. Jaylen took 4. Horford took 2. Holiday took 7. Kind of normal numbers, nothing out of the ordinary. Derrick White took 10, which, that's a big number. But nothing that's striking, nothing that's overly striking. So they played a slower, sloppier style. And in the first quarter, it was, I was just like, wow, this is not the crisp ball movement team. They did have 7 assists, but it just didn't feel like that type of stuff that we saw at the end of the Pistons game, the last 4.5 minutes of the Pistons game, where I was just gushing over the weekend, the past 2 podcasts, about the Jaylen Brown drive, kick, swing, swing, swing. You didn't see a ton of that in this game. Jaylen started out a little cold. Holiday started out cold. Derrick White started out okay. Jayson Tatum started out okay. In the second quarter, it kind of tailed off, and that's where Payton Pritchard really did the bulk of his work. 11 second quarter points. He was 4 of 6 in the second quarter. The rest of the Celtics were 4 of 15. Pritchard was 3 of 5 in the second quarter from 3. The rest of the Celtics were 1 of 7. So if it wasn't for Pritchard getting hot in that second quarter, who knows what would have happened in this game. The Celtics went into halftime down 3. They could have been down 13. And that just changes the dynamic. When you're down double digits, it changes the dynamic of everything. And look, maybe if they were down 13, they would have come out in the third quarter and be like, gung-ho, we're going to come out and we're just going to blast them. And they did come out somewhat strong. They started out on I think it was an 8-0 run in the third quarter. But the Bucks just kept coming back. Pritchard in the second quarter allowed for that back and forth with his shooting. And then, of course, Pritchard hitting the 3-pointer at the end of the third quarter. That was huge because it was an 8-0 run for the Celtics, or 9-0 run for the Celtics. And then Pritchard hits that 3. 6 seconds left. Doc Rivers on the sideline, down on his knees, hands on his knees, just looking, they like kind of glaring. And then Pritchard gets the ball. Now, Doc says after the game, we wanted to force him to the middle, but Pritchard, 2 crossover dribbles, gets to the right. And Doc says, I knew as soon as he got to the right, something bad was going to happen. And from the Celtics perspective, something good was going to happen. Pritchard gets down to his spot, little step back, fires the 3, drills it. Doc still hands on his knees. The only thing that moved was Doc's head. He followed the play with his head, and then as the shot dropped through, Doc's head dropped. Boom. You couldn't tell what he was saying or thinking, but in that moment, you're like, I'm sure he was like, not again with this guy. Pritchard is a spark plug, and Pritchard is capable of these games. People are throwing around 6 man of the year. I'm not going to go down that road just yet. It's too early, but he has the capability of putting up these performances. I think the problem with Pritchard is that as many of as these 28-point games as he's going to have an 8-point game, and he'll end up averaging like 12 or 13, and it's going to be not enough. He'll have these big games on his resume, which is nice, but regardless, it's 4 games into the season. I'm not going to go down this crazy road. Pritchard was amazing. and carried the Celtics offense for a long time until Jaylen Brown could get going. Jaylen Brown and Derrick White were huge. Jaylen had a big second half. Derrick White had that big stretch at the end of the third quarter to change the game. That game-changing stretch, plus Jayson Tatum's frustration, is all coming up here when I come back. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Go ahead and use Game Time and use that Game Time Picks feature so it filters out the fluff to get you incredible deals on great seats at all kinds of events in whatever town you're in. So if you're in Boston and you want to go to, I don't know, a Bruins game maybe, it could be a Friday night and you'd be like, oh, you know what? I feel like hockey, or I feel like a comedy show or a concert or something. Open up the app, see what's going on. There are a lot of cool little venues around Boston that you didn't even realize are hosting little concerts, like the City Winery. There's lots of places where you're like, I didn't even think to check their website to go see if they had something going on. But Game Time is going to have a lot of these tickets to a lot of these places. So go check it out. The Game Time Picks curates those tickets for you so you can save more. When you toggle the feature, the all-in pricing, you get the total up front. The panoramic seat view is right there in the app so you can see what you're going to see before you buy it. They've got the lowest price guarantee. You get 110% of the difference credited to your account if you find those tickets somewhere else for less. The Game Time customer service policy is the most flexible in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time and Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. We have got a newsletter introducing the Locked On Celtics daily newsletter, one-stop shopping for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free. Just like this podcast is free, the newsletter is free at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com to start your day with the all-new free Locked On Celtics team newsletter. All right, the Celtics were a little sloppy, and Jaylen Brown was a little cold. And by the way, the Celtics still have the NBA belt. So they've defended it now 4-0 with the belt. So I'm working on it. At least I got the graphic up in my second segment on the YouTube page. The Celtics didn't get a lot from Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum. Their first half was, I'll call it subpar. Jaylen Brown was 2 of 8 in the first half for 9 points, a -3. Jayson Tatum was 4 of 11 in the first half, a -1, 8 points. They were combined 0 for 7 from 3. In the second half, Jaylen Brown wakes up. 5 for 6 in the third quarter. In the fourth quarter, Jaylen is 3 for 5. He has a 21-point second half on 8 of 11 shooting. He didn't hit a 3 in the fourth quarter. He hit 1. No, he didn't hit a 3 for the whole game. He was 0 for 4 from 3. My fault. And he said after the game, I make my money in the paint. Jaylen really pushed, got a lot of free throws. A lot of his shots were and ones. So Jaylen kind of woke up in the second half when Jayson Tatum just had a bad game. Jayson Tatum had a bad game. I shouldn't even say a bad game, a bad scoring game, bad shooting game, because he did do other things. He did finish with 15 points, 6 of 16 shooting, 1 of 8 from 3. Okay, he was bound to cool off from 3. He was having an unsustainable start to the season. Fine, not a big deal. I thought the Celtics actually didn't do a great job setting picks for Tatum. I didn't see any of the high screen and rolls for Tatum. They set the picks way too close to the line. I think it allowed the Bucks to stay close to Tatum. When they're setting the screens up high, it allows Tatum more room. It puts Brook Lopez. It would have put Brook Lopez in a more disadvantaged situation. I don't know why the Celtics never corrected that, but they didn't, and I think that affected Tatum's shooting. Something that's easily correctable, not a big deal. But look, Tatum had 8 points. He did have 4 assists. He had 2 steals, a block, a big time block, actually, and he it was a team high plus 18. So once again, Tatum is on the floor and good things happen, even if he's not shooting or scoring well. But okay, you still need him to score. Somebody's got to pick up the slack. Talked about Payton Pritchard. Jaylen in the second half for sure picked up the slack. But the game changed in the third quarter. Well, I don't know what was going on with the refs. The refs were bad in this game. And I think both teams might be like, yeah, the refs did suck. And, if there's a Bucks fan in the comments, they'll be like, what are you complaining about with the refs? I'm not complaining necessarily. I think they missed some really obvious things. Like they just weren't good. I'm not complaining about foul calls or whatever. I'm not complaining about foul disparity, although Damian Lillard going to the line 18 times seems a little ridiculous. He got a couple of phantom foul calls, but that's the thing. Like they were calling calls that there was no contact, but they were letting things go when there was. But anyway, the worst of it was the 24-second violation with I forget a few minutes to go there in the third quarter. Drew Holiday has the ball. He takes the shot. It clearly goes off the rim, and they call it 24-second violation. And Tatum had already gotten a delay of game. Tatum had already gotten a tech because of the officials. And I think that played into his performance. He was very frustrated with the officials. And so Holiday is complaining. Joe Mazzulla is complaining. The ref is having a conversation with Joe Mazzulla. And then I think it was Tony Brothers comes in and calls a delay of game. And, one ref is talking to the coach. So he is delaying the game himself. Regardless, they give the Bucks a technical free throw. They go up 80-79. Well, for some reason that kind of fueled the Celtics because the Celtics ended the third quarter on a run. 90-82 was the final. So they were 11-3 was the final run to close the third quarter. And that run was Derrick White, 3-pointer, followed quickly by Derrick White, another 3-pointer. Derrick didn't shoot particularly great, but he hits the 3. He says something finally. He hits the second 3. He's talking to the bench. He's doing his 3 in the pocket celebration. He's really amped up, comes down, vertical against Giannis Antetokounmpo, gets the blocked shot. The place is going nuts. Absolute. The fans were dying to go crazy, and they were going crazy there. It was just rapid fire. 3-pointer, block shot. Payton Pritchard had a shot. If he had hit that 3-pointer to cap off that sequence after Derrick White blocked Giannis Antetokounmpo, the building was so loud. I remember that question I got on the one of my mailbags was like, when's the loudest you've ever heard the building? That was a tie. That game right there, it could not have possibly gotten louder. If Pritchard had hit that shot, they would have had to stop the game and inspect the foundation because the building was going to shake so much that there would have been cracks in the foundation. That's how loud it was getting. So Derrick White, who didn't have the best shooting game either, triggers this run to close the third quarter. And then you have Pritchard hitting that buzzer beater. And then the Celtics come out at the beginning of the fourth quarter and hit him with 6-0, 8-0 run there. And it just becomes, I think, 16-2 or 16-3 was the fight. the extended run. Celtics go up 15. Jaylen's doing his thing, and that basically seals the deal. Bucks on a back-to-back. They don't have the shooting. They didn't have the energy. They're kind of struggling right now. They couldn't finish the game off at that point. So just a great finish there for the Celtics, and a good test. A good test. Let me talk a little bit more about Tatum. I'll talk about Jordan Walsh. And I'll talk about how this test is important and why the Celtics are still figuring themselves out. I'll do that when I come back. So the Boston Celtics get this win. They go on that big run. All of a sudden, just like last year, it's, close game, back and forth. They don't look so good. Boom, 15-point lead. What the hell just happened here? Milwaukee fans would be like, you got to be kidding me. This was just a back and forth game. We had this. Jordan Walsh was huge, energy-wise. He made some great plays, getting up on the glass, getting some rebounds. He finished with the numbers don't look like they jump off the page. He was I just lost it. Plus 10. He had 3 rebounds, 1 offensive rebound, and he hit 1 shot. He didn't hit. He took 2 threes. He missed them both, but still ended up a positive there because his energy. And there was one play where he, look, he's not the biggest guy in the world. He's still slight of frame, and he got in there and boxed out Brook Lopez on a play where Brook could have gotten the offensive rebound and put up potentially or caught an air ball, I think it was, and maybe would have gotten a basket or gotten it up off the rim. As it was, Walsh gets the box out, ball lands, shot clock goes off. It's a 24-second violation. That's not going to show up in a stat sheet, but that's the type of energy that you need from a guy like Jordan Walsh, and he comes in and does the job. It was a nice contribution energy-wise for a team that needed energy. Now, Tatum, as I said, was very clearly frustrated. You can see, and Tom Westerholm made the point on Twitter with the joke that you can tell the technical foul was coming on Tatum because he kept throwing the ball to the refs harder and harder and harder every time he had the ball and it was a dead ball. He was very clearly frustrated. It's the kind of game where you just wish Tatum could brush it off. But when Tatum starts to, I don't want to say spiral, but it was clearly in his head. He had one play where he rose up for a 3. I didn't see the replay. I'm sure he got hit on the hand, and he airballed the 3-pointer. And he flailed, and he was looking for the foul call. He never came. And those types of plays, you just don't need those types of plays. You have to understand early on, I'm not getting the whistle. And I don't understand sometimes how Tatum doesn't get the whistle. It's not like he wasn't being aggressive. He was. He was attacking the basket. He just didn't get the calls, and I don't know why. But you got to understand, sometimes it's going to happen. Sometimes you're going to drive and not get the calls. Maybe that's going to change. Maybe that's going to change over the course of the game. Maybe if you keep going, you'll get to the free throw line eventually. And, so you just got to keep pressing forward. You cannot get too caught up in not getting the whistle. You just don't want to risk a crazy emotional referee night where you get that early tech and then all of a sudden you get tossed in the fourth quarter over something stupid. But he didn't. It was fine. But this is the type of game that you just don't want to see very often. But it's going to happen. And this is where the test comes in. And this is where the Celtics figuring themselves out comes in. And you're going to say, John, you've been talking about their continuity. They have a lot of things figured out. Why are you saying they still need to figure themselves out? Well, because this game is a good example. The officials, who knows what the officials are going to be like? You've got different officials in the game. You've got new officials in the league. You've got new rules, new areas of emphasis, new challenge rules, a lot of like little nuancy things just from the officiating standpoint that you have to get used to. It's going to change some of the dynamics. You have the Milwaukee Bucks, who are a little bit retooled, right? They tried to remake their look. They're starting Taurean Prince. They started Gary Trent Jr. It's a new starting lineup for them. You've got Giannis and Dame trying to figure themselves out. You've got new players. You got the Knicks with Karl Anthony Towns. You've got the Sixers with Paul George, and you just have new players and new challenges. So, yes, your starting lineup is the same starting lineup that you started in the NBA Finals. You're still, and when Porzingis is back and healthy, and by the way, Porzingis looked good. He was out there warming up before the game, and he looked good. He looked normal. That doesn't mean he's ready for NBA level play, but he looked pretty normal to me. I didn't see him doing anything out of the ordinary. If I didn't know any better, if I just was on vacation for the past 4 months and you come back and you're like, oh yeah, Porzingis is, why wouldn't he play? So obviously he's not coming back anytime soon, I don't think, but he looked good out there. When he comes back, that's your top 8 guys are still your top 8 guys, but guys are a year older. There is, you're working in Xavier Tillman. He does a couple of different things now. You're working with Jordan Walsh now. Pritchard is getting a little bit better. Guys are getting a little bit better. Luke Cornett does different things, or maybe some of the things that he's done he's doing better. So all of these things are new kind of parts of the atmosphere. They're new ingredients, right? And so even though you know how to make the meal, there are new ingredients here. And you say, okay, I got to figure out how much of this new spice to throw in there, or this is a new brand of something that maybe they make something a little bit different. I'm using new cookware, whatever the hell you want to do as far as, this analogy. There are little tiny things that are different. And so the Celtics are still figuring that part out. So losing the lead against Detroit, this game here, where the lead, by the way, got up to 18, is the first Celtics game this season where the lead didn't touch 20, which is kind of wild. They're 4 games in, and this is the first one where the league didn't touch at least 20, but it got up to 18, and there was garbage time. So, but the Celtics they need these tests. They need these bad games. They need Tatum to have a bad night. Like, you don't want them to have a bad night, but over the course of the season, it's going to happen. Like, you just know it's going to happen at some point. Jaylen Brown is going to have a bad night. Probably a handful of them. Jayson Tatum, Derrick White, Drew Holiday, Al Horford, Payton Pritchard, all of these guys are going to have their bad nights. Occasionally, all of them will have a bad night at the same time, and the Celtics will lose. What you need is a few of these games where, okay, Jayson is not scoring. He's not bailing us out. He scored 15 points in this game. He was their 4th leading scorer. Just not a big Jayson Tatum night. But even though I said he did other things, who is going to step up? How do you navigate things? How do you get through a first half and process that first half and say, okay, Jaylen Brown, okay, I know what I'm doing. I've got to do this. Jason's shot is off. Maybe I need to just focus on driving and trying to draw fouls. Different guys have different mindsets that you say, okay, I've got to find a way to step up a little bit here. So these games, like this one against Milwaukee, are just as important as blowing out the Knicks and having everything go right. It's just as important to have this tough slog, maybe not the prettiest kind of game, even though it was generally close for most of it and probably exciting in a lot of ways, and people were cheering and like living and dying by each play. That's as important as watching the Celtics execute everything perfectly and seeing like, wow, this is an elite offense and thus an elite defense in motion. Celtics defense was okay. I feel like they were either great for most of this game or terrible. There was not much in between. There was not a lot of like, oh, good defense, but the Bucks just scored. It was the Celtics are playing great defense and they're getting stops and forcing 24-second violations and all of that, or they're just getting blown by and Giannis is doing whatever he wants and Dame is drawing fouls and guys are getting to the rim. They cleaned it up later on. And again, passing the test. They were challenged. It took a while. They figured it out. The Celtics might be the best team at just rolling with the other team's runs. They might be the best team in the league at taking the 8-0, 10-0 punch and being like, it's cool. Oh, we're down 14. It's cool. Not a big deal. We'll figure it out. They understand, especially early, second quarter, third quarter even, down 14, 15, that's not a big deal. Not with the way they can shoot the three. And in the end, the Celtics hit for 30 more points from three than the Bucks. Bucks were 8 of 31, Celtics 18 of 47, so 10 more three-pointers, plus 30 in that spot. The Celtics just know that if you just bide your time and you keep playing the right way, eventually those shots will start to fall. Drew Holiday starts hitting shots. Obviously, Pritchard starts hitting shots. Al Horford hit a couple of shots. You know, a simple drive and kick. Those plays, when they finally got to them, they worked. So 4-0 start for the Celtics. That's great. Beating the Bucks is great. You know, anytime you can get a potential tiebreaker because you don't know how the season's going to go. Anytime you get a potential tiebreaker win, that's perfect. You take as many of those as you can. Celtics now move on to Indiana on Wednesday. It's the first of a 3-game in 4-night stretch before they go to, I think, Atlanta and then come home for the Golden State Warriors. Tomorrow's show will be a crossover. With Tony East from Locked On Pacers. So we'll go back and we'll relive that incredible playoff series, a fun competitive sweep, and look at that Wednesday game. That's tomorrow's podcast. So one of many, many, many podcasts coming up. So subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Get there on the YouTube page. Ring the bell there. Get notified when I drop a video. Get into the comment section. Let me know what you're thinking. Have a conversation with your fellow Celtics fans. And then I would love it if you shared the podcast. Spread the word. Tell everybody that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.